This is a short presentation about reviewing and revising. We're hoping to give you some principles to help you think about how to make your own writing better. And we believe that understanding these principles will also help you to help others make their writing better too. A few decades ago, the idea that writing is a process began to gain currency in the field of rhetoric and composition. The idea was that writing process theory could help to demystify writing and what writing is for people, so that they could understand that they could move through recognizable stages and that it wasn't an act of magic to make writing happen. More recently, there has been what's been called a post-process movement that has noted really that writing is not one process but multiple processes, and that different writers may have different processes, and moreover that they might bounce back and forth between the steps of what seem like linear stages that were identified by the process movement. So the idea is though that although we can talk about a writing process, it's not just fixed steps or stages, but rather overlapping parts of a complex whole. We want to focus on revision. Now we know that no matter what your process is, we know that every writer is going to revise, and we want to give you some ideas about how. We want to help you think about how not to cling to what doesn't belong and what isn't good in your drafts, and how to move from an initial draft to new stages of draft. We're going to draw heavily on the work of Donald Murray, who wrote the book called The Craft of Revision. Most of what follows comes from that book. So there are a number of ways to approach revision, and one is to approach revision for meaning. When we talk about revising for meaning, we're talking about thinking what is the overall communicative gesture of your piece. What is it that you're trying most to convey and to communicate? Then you should focus your writing around that communicative gesture. So when you revise for meaning, you're going to look for the things that are extraneous or distracting, things that lead you away from the central communicative gesture. Or you may also want to figure out a way that those things do connect and make that connection more apparent. You can also revise for an audience. When you revise for an audience, you're going to try to step away from your draft as you have conceived it, and try to imagine your draft as it would be experienced by a reader who doesn't know you or your intentions. In other words, reading your draft as a stranger might read it. Peer reviewers can be an enormous help in this regard, and you yourself, as a peer reviewer, can accomplish this for someone else, trying to help the writer understand what you experience on the page, as opposed to what they think they've accomplished by putting down the words that they have. You can revise for order and for evidence. When you do this, you look first of all for the overall organization of the piece of writing. Does it have a logical sequence of ideas? Are the parts of the piece in their proper shape? That is, do you have some balance between the parts, and are the proper things emphasized? And have you used the features of the genre to help organize your piece so that it feels like that genre? When you're revising for evidence, you want to look at how evidence connects to points and whether you're using appropriate types of evidence. For instance, say in a letter, you're going to use different types of evidence than you'd use in a formal report. Finally, does your evidence all connect back to the meaning, to your overall communicative aim? The last thing you might think about is revising for voice. Voice is your unique style that you hope will be both clear and simple, the effect that you create that makes people feel like you're speaking to them. You want to aim for a voice that's both clear and simple, although sometimes the value of simplicity can be overstated as a goal in and of itself. You might want to look up this little piece by Mark O'Connell on the writer's voice. It was in the New Yorker in September of 2011. I think you'll like it. Lastly, there's this little piece that appeared in the New York Times in September of 2012 by Verlyn Klinkenborg. At the time, it was being passed around in my circles of writing teachers. Klinkenborg wants us to think about the ways that our intentions as writers sometimes get in the way of what's actually happening in a piece of writing. He says, don't be blinded by what you think you're saying. The sentence you make won't give you the benefit of a doubt, even though the reader may. And don't assume that the literal meaning of the sentence is the least important one. It's the only important one. Without the accuracy of being literal, there's nothing to build on. I love this sentence that I've got here for you. Inexperienced writers tend to trust that sentences will generally turn out all right, or all right enough. Experienced writers know that every good sentence is retrieved by will from the forces of chaos. That's one way to think about revision. It's retrieving your draft from the forces of chaos in order to make it do what you want it to do, to accomplish your communicative gesture for a reader.